I'm Pastor Cameron. This is Sermons in 7, the Gospel of Mark. So today we are going to be in chapter 2 of Mark and make our way all the way through chapter 3, verse 6. And so to give you a little bit of context as to what is going on here, is that in verses 1 through 12, we find that Jesus forgives and heals a paralyzed man. There's a man, if you understand here, right, that the people heard that Jesus had come, right? And so they gathered in such a large numbers that there was no room left, right? He's in a house and not even outside the door, it says. And he preached to them. And some people came bringing their friend, and they couldn't get to Jesus. So what do? They go up, they go onto the roof, they tear through the roof, and they lower the man to Jesus. And what does Jesus do? Is that he deals with the man's sin before he deals with the physical ailment. We'll come back to that, right? After this, though, Jesus goes beside the lake, and a large crowd comes to him, and he's teaching. And after he's done teaching, he goes and he calls Levi, right? There's another one of his disciples, Levi, also called Matthew, who is a tax collector. And so this text is important. It says, Jesus says, "Follow me," Jesus told him. And Levi got up and followed him. And that's important. That's huge. But then Jesus has dinner with Levi and some of his friends and other tax collectors and the text says, sinners. And so, but the Pharisees are there. This group of people that would guard the law, right? And so they're out there to question Jesus, to scrutinize Jesus. And so they ask him some questions, right? They ask his disciples some questions, and Jesus responds, right? But then he's asked about fasting. John the disciple and his disciples would fast. And so hey, how come you don't fast? How come your disciples don't fast, your followers? And Jesus responds to them there. And then the latter part of chapter 2 and into the first part of chapter 3, we find that Jesus is the Lord of the Sabbath. That Jesus, the Pharisees once again come up and they say, why are your followers eating? Right? Why are they harvesting, if you will? They'd pluck some grain out of the field and they were eating. And then Jesus had the audacity to heal a person on the Sabbath. And the Pharisees respond. And so the overall theme of this today is really, what is your response to Jesus? And towards the end of this video, we're going to do a brief contrast between Levi and the Pharisees. But what I want to look at today is that Jesus deals with the man's sin before he deals with the physical ailment, right? And this is huge because when Jesus says your sin is forgiven, the Pharisees go crazy. They're saying, hey, wait a minute. Only God can forgive sin, and they're right. But Jesus, he says, to prove to you that I can do this, get up and walk. And so how awesome it is that Jesus deals with our sin first. That's the most important issue. And then once we understand that we have fallen short of the glory of God and that Jesus has died for us, we can follow him. We can follow him. But so Jesus here today, though, he presents himself as different things, as different images, right? He presents himself in different concepts. He presents himself as a physician. He came to call the sick, right? How else, right? The Pharisees are dealing with Matthew here and the sinners. How else is Levi and his other friends, how else are they going to meet Jesus? How else are they going to be saved? They definitely weren't welcome at the synagogue. The Pharisees would have made that clear. But Jesus goes to them. Jesus goes to you. Jesus goes to me. Jesus goes to those people that, again, are not wanted in religious circles. He presents himself as the bridegroom in verses 19 through 20. He presents himself as a new garment. I'm going to do something new here. New wine in verses 21 through 22. And 2:23 through 3:6, he presents himself as the Lord of the Sabbath. How awesome is that? That they were putting burdens on people, but Jesus was there to release those burdens. And so let's look for a few minutes at the contrast here between Levi and the Pharisees. Levi was a tax collector. He was employed by Rome, right? You know what that means? That means that his Jewish brethren did not like him. So he was not wanted by the Jewish brothers and sisters. And once he left everything, once he left that tax booth, he would not have been welcome back in the Rome. Like hey man, that that bridge has been burned, right? He forsakes all so that he can follow Jesus, right? And then you look at, so that's Matthew. And you look at the Pharisees. They start by criticizing Jesus when he's dealing with the paralytic. They start, again, by questioning him, saying, why? Why are you eating with these people? They start by questioning him again and freaking out a little bit when he's dealing with the Sabbath issues. And as Matthew forsook all and followed Jesus, this is the result of the Pharisees. Chapter 3, verse 6. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. So the question for you and I today is, what's your response to Jesus? What is your response as the Lord issues that call for discipleship to you? Right? There's a song out there that says, make room. And this is what the bridge says. Shake up the ground of all my tradition. Break down the walls of all my religion. Your way is better. And then I love how Francis Chan ends this with this quote, Jesus demands a decision. He leaves no room for ambivalence. We are either for him or against him. There's no in between. Jesus is looking for followers who recognize their sin and submit to his authority.